The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another Second Breakfast podcast. I'm Andy Roth alongside Phil Duvall. Say hi, Phil.
Hi, Andy. Oh, I'm laughing because right before you told me to say hi, I had this moment of crushing existential doubt. You were like, welcome everybody, and in my mind I was like, nobody cares. Why do we do this? Who am I? Who is Andy? My life is useless. And then you were like, say hi, Phil, and I'm like, oh!
I'm not entirely sure how that results in a laugh. That's very
my sense of humor, though. I mean, I think in the end it results in a laugh because I'm kind of messed up.
We laugh that we may not cry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. There's a really great story you've heard it. You've heard the story of Abraham, who's 90 years old, and God tells him he's going to have a child. You know.
Yep.
Well, he's 75 the first time God tells him, and then he keeps showing up occasionally throughout the years to be like, no, but seriously, gonna have kids. And Abraham's like, okay, thanks. No problem. Listen, I need you to have a child, but first I'm going to need you to cut the tip of your penis off. Okay, I'll try that. And then there's this part in the story where finally he's been doing this forever. And God shows up again and he's like, by the way, gonna have kids. And Sarah, his wife, is in the tent and she laughs when she hears this. And God's like, why are you laughing? And Sarah's like, I didn't laugh. He's like, no, you totally did. And that's the end of it's the end of the anecdote, which I always think is like a weird way to end the story. But the reason I'm telling you all this is because of two things. One is when he's like, why did you laugh? She should have been like, because, dude, seriously. That's why. She should have said that to God first.
Because, dude, seriously. Yeah, no, totally.
Secondly, my actual answer is she laughed so that she would not cry.
Sure.
Because when you tell a woman who's been infertile for 90 years that she's going to have a child, she laughs so that she doesn't, it's the only way through the absolute tragedy of how absurd God is being in that situation. She laughed so that she didn't have to come out with a knife and be like, she totally deserved, and yet it all worked out. They had kids, and now here we are.
That's true.
Here you are, really. I'm just...
Yes, here I am.
I'm an afterthought. So,
yada, yada, Andy.
Yada, yada. Really, you're the culmination of God's promise to Abraham, Andy. Good job.
I mean, you said that, man, not me.
You said it, not me.
Which makes my admission before we started shooting that I am, so unbelievably filled with pork products. Really kind of unfortunate. God, sorry, bro.
Yeah,
and to be honest, Abraham and Sarah, I'm sorry.
Abraham, there's nothing that says that Abraham and Sarah didn't eat pork. The whole pork prohibition came much later. Thousands of years later. I think you should be in good shape.
Phil, you're the best. Okay.
Get off of you.
So, to sum up, everybody, nothing says hijinks like crushing existential doubt.
I believe that. That's my truth. All right, speak to my truth. Andy, what's coming out this week? We always tell people what movies are coming out.
It's true.
Tell me, because I actually don't know.
The big release, my friend. Thor: The Dark World. Marvel.
Oh, wait. Is that seriously coming out this week?
What, Phil? Why would I joke about that with you?
I honestly didn't realize that.
I understand. It's like a weird time for it to come out, but yes, it is. It is
Oscar season, and
yeah, that's right.
The Oscars need to go to Thor: The Dark World.
That's right. And Christopher Eccleston has to get some notice for his Malekith the Dark Elf.
There it is.
Trail.
I think we were all feeling that way.
It's true. And perhaps unsurprisingly, that's the only major release. Because everyone's like, get out of the way of Marvel! Get out of the way of Marvel!
I don't blame them. No, I am excited. I guess I haven't seen the side of a bus lately. That's the only explanation that I didn't know this.
That's right.
It's weird not living in LA. You used to live in New York and I used to live in LA.
Yep.
And now you live in one of the places in North Carolina. It's Durham, right?
Yes,
you live in
Phil.
I always get it mixed up with Raleigh. You live in Durham or outside of Durham, and then I live in Orange County. Neither of us live in those places. And there are billboards in both of the places we live.
It's true.
And buses. But it ain't like it was where we used to be.
No. I can't.
And you used to work in Times Square. You used to walk by 30-foot high pictures of like someone's eyeball.
Right. I can't recall the last time I saw a. I've seen like sides of buses and stuff that have been advertisements for movies, but I can't recall the last time I saw a billboard for a movie.
But when you lived in New York, like they actually hired Chris Hemsworth to just walk around New York in the Thor suit. I mean,
He was the naked cowboy.
right.
All
All right, well done.
tourism in New York just spiked even higher. No, folks, he was not the naked cowboy.
A lot of people.
Yes. That's the big one. 3 limited release movies. 1, Best Man Down.
Oh, I want to see that.
I do too. I just read a middling review of it, but it's not from someone I trust, so who cares?
There you go.
Ass Backwards, which looks so weird, I can't even deal with it. It's about these. It's like Romy and Michelle's 20-year high school reunion, kind of.
Now, when you say it looks weird,
I mean, it looks like a movie that uses logic that is not our Earth logic.
okay, yeah, I saw the preview and I almost felt like this looks like everyone in it is talented and there will be funny things,
And it
but
would be
it
terrible.
kind of looks poorly made.
Yes.
Which doesn't mean it will be bad.
That's true. I also mean that, but I also like when I say weird, my that word weird encompasses what you just said, but that isn't actually fully what I meant. I mean it looks like The Naked Lunch or that weird intermission during Monty Python and the Holy Grail. He's like fishy, fishy, fish, like that.
Right.
It looks weird. To me.
So it's Romy and David Lynch's high school reunion.
Very well said. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Done. Next.
And the last movie that is in limited release, How I Live Now.
Okay.
How I Live. To be followed by the sequel, How I Live adverb. How I Live Now. How I Live Now. It starts. It's like half like Twilight and like, oh no, how am I going to love you? Because in this case, you're my cousin. And then it's like World War III. Starring.
Are there vampires in this movie?
No, but instead of how do I love you, you're a vampire, how do I love you, you're my cousin, or something.
Oh.
And then it's World War III, and it stars Saoirse Ronan and other people I don't know, but Saoirse Ronan, who's talented and picks good stuff.
Love Saoirse Ronan.
Yes.
I don't understand anything you just said.
It's not, let me put it this way, Ass Backwards, not the only weird movie coming out this weekend.
Gosh, I love Saoirse Ronan. I want everyone to go see Hannah. Well, can't go see it because it's not in theaters anymore. It's on video, but that's a movie that everyone should see.
Yeah, totes. Totally.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And then come talk to me about Saoirse Ronan.
Yes. So.
All right, so Andy, that's a thing.
That's a thing. 4 movies.
Are you going to see? I assume you're going to see Thor in IMAX 3D, 7D with popcorn flying at your face. And
Phil.
Extra smells.
So here's a problem. Here's the problem. I wouldn't necessarily. I would at least consider it. I wouldn't necessarily. Well, okay. If I go see it with a friend, my friend who I go to movies with in this part of the country gets headaches from 3D. So, and that's fine.
For that person.
Well, here's the deal, though. The IMAX 3D, and I think maybe only the IMAX 3D, is getting a 5-minute Captain America 2 trailer.
Okay.
I mean...
You're a much bigger fan of Captain America than I am, but that's a thing.
Well, Phil, I have come to grips with the fact that you are not a proud American. You know?
Andy, I have a question. Do you have an American flag flying outside of your house that you put there?
No.
Okay. Well, I guess we see who the real patriot is now.
I'm sorry, Phil. My American flag is flying in my heart.
Nope. Not gonna get you. You can't run for office on that line, buddy.
I can't run for office.
I like it.
on a number of lines, my friend.
So many reasons why you're not going to be running for office.
That's right. That doesn't make the top 50.
The main reason I couldn't run for office is because all the things I believe and my past. Those are the only 2 reasons.
That's right.
Because
That's
no one
right.
would vote for the things that I believe in, and my past is really sketchy. Other than that, I think everything looks fine.
The only thing that I would add to my list is that I'm just completely unelectable in every way. So, you know, uh, uh, college drama club, eminently electable, totally electable.
You were. You
Yes,
were.
the
True.
the who will be the graduation speaker at my law school, completely electable. Anything with any sort of actual power and responsibility,
Unelectable.
unelectable, my friend.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, shall we move on?
Can we? I'm a little depressed now.
But you should find that funny. Crushing existential doubt.
It's true. It's true.
Well said. So let's move on. Let's move on to to the meat. The meat in our second breakfast sandwich.
Oh man, and it is a tasty bit of homophobic Mormon meat, I believe, if I understand.
Wow.
It isn't though, actually.
Well, so-
it's a movie that is about compassion. Let's talk about it. We're going to talk a little bit about Ender's Game.
We are, although I don't want to pass by without saying that while homophobic Mormon meat would not be a good band name, it would be a decent album name, I think.
It's a very good point. No, you wouldn't want to call your whole band that. You wouldn't want to be saddled, because you'd have to be like the greatest hits of, the best of, you know.
That's right. That's right.
But if you had an album of called that, it could be a concept album. There's so much you could do.
Yeah, totally.
So much you could do.
Agreed. I love it.
All right. Well, here's the thing. But
Yeah.
the important thing is we're going to talk about Ender's Game.
We are.
And folks, we're going to talk about it avec spoilers. We're going to talk about it with spoilers.
Or avec spoilers.
If you cone spoiler, if you want to not be spoiled, then you want to listen. You want to skip to the mailbag, because I'm just warning you. Our mailbag this week, awesome.
It is so choice.
So
It is.
If
you have the means, I highly recommend it.
I highly recommend it. Yeah. So as he
Indeed.
drinks his coffee like a delicate flower.
Tea. I drink my
Oh.
tea like a delicate flower.
Oh, look at that with the.
I'm not
with
I'm
the-
not a coffee drinker.
Okay. I'll drink the occasional coffee.
You know who is? I would bet Harrison Ford's character in Ender's Game.
Like probably drinks. Yeah, because he's pretty on edge the entire time.
like the sludge. The sludge.
Is that what we're?
Yes.
Is there a place we want to start? Okay, let's start. Andy, you were the one who said to me, "I need you to see Ender's Game," because I wasn't really caring one way or the other. And you said, "I need you to see Ender's Game."
Yeah.
And we need to talk about it. So,
So-
whilst I have many impressions, I think yours would be the first from which we bounce
Well,
off.
I want to start. I want to start by saying, and this is actually the last thing that I'll say before we really delve into spoilers, folks. I have read the book. Phil has
Yes.
not,
That's right.
So-
my
so-
entire impression is going to be based solely on the movie.
and I am going to do my best to have my impressions solely on the movie. But of course, that A is impossible, and B
Impossible.
Yes. But also, I think it's possible to sort of acknowledge that. I think it's possible to say, you know what, this is something I like from the book, but it doesn't consciously impact what I think of the movie. Does that make sense? Like,
Does, of
like,
course.
yeah. So
I mean, you might be wrong when you say it.
That's
I'm not
true.
actually saying that snidely. It's like one of those things where we go, "Well, this doesn't affect my opinion," and it's like, "Well, I'll be the judge of that." It's hard to
And
it's
you
hard
will.
to it's hard to judge that stuff.
That's right. But as Ben Stein says, I shall do my best.
I should do my best.
So, quick plot synopsis. There was a war. These bug-like aliens came down, wrecked crap, and we beat them back, but barely. And then fast forward like 50 years, And in order to prepare for the Second War, they have been genetically engineering children.
Like you do, by the way.
Like you do. Like a touch of the old eugenics here. And they have been engineering them to be militarily minded, so that you get, like, all of the great strategy, but you also have the outside the box thinking that only can come from a child.
When you say engineering, though, I never got the sense in the movie that they're like doing anything like making children like in the Matrix, like in a bubble, so much as just training them from a very young age. Am I wrong?
You're at least a little wrong.
Oh, well,
You're
then I'm a little wrong.
And that might be based on the book, but they are. It's not just any random kid that they take into battle school. It's no accident that the 3 children of this family, of the Wiggin family, all had their shot in battle school. That's not an accident.
Is there? But they don't say that in the movie again. This is something from the book, isn't it? It's not clear.
It's
in the movie that they eugenic.
That's true. That's true.
That's all I'm saying.
No. That's right. That's right.
But continue. I don't want to get us off track.
I mean, that's kind of it. It is the story of the child who is, from a very, very early age, much earlier than in the movie, tabbed as, this is the guy. This is the kid who is going to be our last hope. Oh,
really?
Yes. Mm. And that, I do think they do a pretty good job of in the movie. I mean, not the age thing, but because in the book, it starts from a much younger age.
Well, and I think that someone wrote, and I agreed blindly, that it's much, much, much easier to make a movie about 13 to 17-year-olds than it is to make a movie about, like, 7 and 8-year-olds.
Agreed.
I'm astonished to do the things they want to do with it.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's right.
So these creatures attack. They get fought off, and then now the world is on the attack. They're going after the creatures that attacked them in the first place and that they fought off, and now their goal is to completely destroy them so that they will never be attacked again.
Right.
And they the way they do it, if you haven't seen, well, I mean, come on, we're talking about people who've seen the movie, but the way they do it is they have kids do it because kids grew up on video games, and it's that whole idea of like a kid, the way the kid thinks is like, and so they can do the whole thing basically like drone attack, like basically through video game imaging and all that, and so the kids are the ones that are running the war because and so they just train. It's all about them training. And then, yeah. Anything else?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
what do you want to say? What do you want to say about it? Why did you want to talk about this movie? I'm going to go back to that.
Because
why do you want to talk about this movie?
So we've got adaptations, right? And I mentioned this. I mentioned this on Tuesday. I just think it's such an interesting case because they. Let me tell you the biggest difference between the movie and the book.
Please.
Purely length. I think he doesn't. I think Gavin Hood, I believe, does an admirable job of directing something that feels like the book, but Battle School in the book takes up a good half of like battles in that arena take up a good half of the book. Like
that's interesting.
You there are many battles.
And I'm wondering how that would have been really repetitive in the movie, I think.
I agree.
So okay, well, this guy hasn't really made great movies, it turns out. Well, I never saw Tsotsi, which
is really good. It's really he got this movie, I'm just guessing, on the strength of Tsotsi.
Fair enough, and I guess he won an Academy Award for it.
Yeah. South African, I think?
Yeah, I was going to say, though, an Academy Award for foreign film. Come on.
Right, that totally doesn't count. Yeah, so I think it shows it's a brave story because it really is sort of brutal, and you're dealing with kids here. Like, it's sort of brutal, and it ends on a not happy note. Or at the very least...
It's true.
or at
It's
the
true.
very least, like a rueful and sort of melancholy note, if not.
Is that how the
downright
book? Is
sad.
that how the book ends? By the way. Does it end the way the book ends?
Very similar, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you like it, Andy? That's you haven't answered. You haven't even said. Did you
Oh.
like this movie?
Very much, very much.
Okay.
I
Okay.
did. It was everything I could have wanted out of an adaptation.
I made the mistake of reading a review about it after seeing it. Reviews do not. Well, I read Wesley Morris's review. Your guy Wesley Morris.
He's not my guy, but go ahead.
He kind of is.
Here's what I'll give you. He's more my guy than your guy. That's all I'll give you.
I thoroughly enjoyed this film,
Okay.
but he brought something up for me that I thought was really tricky.
Uh-oh. All right.
Well, like, there's a whole lot of movie of just Harrison Ford and Viola Davis talking to each other about stuff.
Agreed.
And what's more, and this actually bothered me when I was watching it, Viola Davis's character, almost completely useless.
Yep.
Almost completely useless.
Yep.
Which, drives me crazy, because it's the second movie of the fall that I have seen with Viola Davis, and it's the second movie of the fall where Viola Davis is tragically underused and practically useless. Let me go on record. Viola Davis is one of my top 5 actresses working today.
Sure.
I want to see Viola Davis in all the movies. I want to write a movie about a priest that becomes a vampire, and I want it to star Viola Davis. I have plans for Viola Davis in my heart and in my mind. And when I see her be used for what I mean, it literally was like they were trying to find the sternly compassionate looking black woman with the serious eyes, and just that was supposed to fill in the blanks. Like, that's how it felt to me, like, of the actual point of the character, in the sense of, like, because the character doesn't achieve anything, I wanted to see her come back. I wanted to see her visit him later. I wanted to see her be the person that tries to recruit him in the end. I mean, even if that isn't in the book, I don't care.
Right.
I feel
Right,
like
right.
this was a character that was in the book, and they put the character into the movie because it was in the book, but somehow the character lost a purpose or an arc.
Yeah.
Because there's no arc for this character.
Yeah, here's what I felt the purpose was for her character in this movie. And this is not a justification, because it's like the moon only reflects the light of the sun. Her purpose was to serve as a counterpoint to Harrison Ford. And I know that you know that, right? I mean,
No. I
Right.
100% get it. But Harrison Ford, when there was a point in this movie where he woke up from his 50-year slumber, and as an actor, and like acted.
Yes.
And I remembered for a second, and it was really one scene. There is one scene where I was like, "Oh, Harrison Ford."
Is that the what does it matter if there's nothing left at all? That scene?
So no, it's literally the last scene.
Oh,
that
right,
he's in.
with Ender, right.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, I guess we're doing spoilers. It doesn't really matter. Okay,
Yeah.
I was completely destroyed by that.
Yes.
I saw inklings of it,
Yep.
and I was like, "Is it possible that?" But they did a good job of, even if you thought maybe, there was no reason to know it. And the most important thing is, they set it up so much about like the way they manipulate the kid, but then they stop showing you talking about manipulating the kid.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's actually the benefit, is when he's with Viola at the beginning. I see her point as a plot device, actually, in
Sure.
this sense. At the beginning, you see her as that counterbalance, so you see him having to explain how he manipulates Ender. Graph.
Mhm.
As she disappears, he's no longer explaining the manipulation. And so you stop realizing he's manipulating him.
Right.
Or you don't, but I did, because I am convinced that I am the greatest movie viewer of all time. And let me tell you why. Or I am the ideal.
Oh, I can't wait for this. I can't wait for this.
Because I don't watch movies trying to outguess the movie.
Fair.
I don't watch movies until like I was the guy that second season of Lost. People were like, who do you think the others are?" And I was like, "I don't know." But I mean, like, do you think that they're? And I was like, "No, I mean, I don't know."
Remember that?
They don't
Remember that
want
time
us-
I said I didn't know?
They don't want us to know, so I don't know.
Right.
Well, do you think they're in purgatory? They don't want us to know, so I don't know. Like, I don't know. It worked out well for me that actually the writers of Lost didn't know either. But I mean, like, but like in this situation, even though I was like, man, it would be totally messed up if,
Right.
and I realized it kind of, I was like, when the screen went black, I was like, oh, wait a minute. But I still wasn't fully willing to accept it. And then when it happened, and Asa Butterfield, man, that kid, when he realizes, when he comprehends,
Yeah.
it was just, I mean, devastating.
He wrecked me. He wrecked me.
Actually,
And-
the moment before he comprehends, when he's like, wait, what are we looking at?
right.
I just,
Yes. Yes, and Haley
thought-
Steinfeld. Yes.
and when Harrison Ford, like, and he puts his hand on his shoulder and is like, thank you, I was like, Harrison Ford? And then like the sleep of the ages came over him again, and he went back to whatever it is he's been doing for the last 20 years
Hollywood
since
Homicide.
since the last Crusade, the last time he cared, I think.
Right.
I don't know. I'm trying. I mean, I feel like I really actually feel bad. I don't want to be snarky about Harrison Ford because I think it's easy for movie geeks to be like talk about someone like all snarky. Like he's a real human being who makes human choices and has decided like he's living right now somewhere he's sleeping, probably because of the time of night. And like I respect that about him.
Right.
So I don't want to be like snarky about it. But I mean I want to be excited when Harrison Ford is in movies
Right.
because Andy, Han Solo, Indiana Jones, and Jack Ryan.
Yes, and if you care
I mean-
about the movie, which I do more than you do, but I still don't really, Deckard from...
And I give him credit for that. I mean, that's
Right.
fine, but it's
Right.
one character. I mean, it's one movie. I'm thinking about the times where he's played like
Oh,
these
yes.
movies where he's like,
iconic series.
I mean, and
yes.
I mean Jack
Yes.
Ryan. I mean,
Yeah.
him and Patriot Games in Clear and Present Danger. And by the way, I love him in The Fugitive. Fugitive is one of my favorite movies from the 90s.
Oh, totally.
Love The Fugitive. Here's how deep my Harrison Ford love is.
Can't wait.
I love Regarding Henry.
Wow. Okay.
I know.
Okay.
I mean, and I've watched it in the last year.
How about some Presumed Innocent? Huh? Well, Presumed Innocent?
I'm gonna tell you something.
What's that?
I've never seen it.
Can I tell you something?
Yeah.
Never seen Regarding Henry.
But Presumed Innocent was apparently better. Regarding Henry was.
I will believe you. I will believe you. Yeah. Let's get back to Ender's Game. Let's get back to Ender's Game because
we are though. We're talking about Harrison Ford because he's such a major part in this, and I have
You're
such a
right.
hard time believing him a lot of the time.
Did you really see? I very much got a Robert De Niro in Silver Linings Playbook vibe from him. It was like, oh,
Interesting.
like what you got from that last scene. I got for
You felt the whole time.
not every single moment, but the overwhelming majority of moments.
I'm willing to see it again and wonder.
Sure. What I loved was that for the most part, except for things that at the end of the day turned out to be just exposition. I mean, truthfully, which
Yes.
again casts a shadow of doubt on what Viola Davis's character was doing in that movie. But even when you had someone like and clearly the biggest name in this movie was Harrison Ford. Clearly the second biggest name in this movie, Sir Ben Kingsley. Frankly,
Yeah.
maybe the third biggest name in this movie, Viola Davis. And yet,
Yeah.
this is a movie of and by and about the kids. It really is. I think they did a really nice job of centering it on the kids. And you know, you've got your Hunger Games, you've got your Battle Royale, you've got we live in a world where there are enough examples of kids doing warlike things that we are no longer shocked simply by a child being violent. And yet
Well said.
and yet thank you. And yet there is something about the story in the book, and there is something about the way it is portrayed in the movie that feels fresh. It felt fresh to me, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a difference, because you know why? Because we see children being violent, or we see violence portrayed with children, but it's meant to shock, generally, or it's totally unrealistic. And this is children playing video games and laser tag and learning how to control and be. It's showing children be authoritative, which is different, inherently different. And I'm not talking to someone who's read the book. In this movie, they portray children learning how to be authoritative, be aggressive, but in a controlled way, to be like methodically aggressive, to be to play up their manipulativeness, their ability to manipulate, their drive for power as children, all within the realm of children, such that when you finally send these people to war, you convince them that they're playing games, and it works.
Yeah.
Because if you actually told kids they were killing people, they couldn't handle it.
Right.
But if you tell children they're playing games, they become incredibly able to manipulate, plan, strategize, cooperate.
Yes.
You know.
You had that other kid, Bernard, who was like the jerk. And yet it was like,
his name. I just call him Moose. His name is never Moose in the movie, but he's the guy that in any 1950s Sandlot type movie, they'd have just called him Moose.
They would have just called him Moose.
He's just the big oaf kid.
And what I liked,
but you're right, Bernard.
I actually liked his performance. It was just like,
it was fine.
You know,
I gotta be honest with you. I liked all the performances. In second viewing, I may end up saying I liked Harrison Ford's performance.
Sure.
I obviously have some personal issues to work out with him.
Sure.
That's my thing.
Sure.
But by the way, and I'm actually glad that I'm admitting that, because I want people who are hearing this, like, we totally have, like, we take things personally, and we go into movies with crazy biases and prejudices and hold things against people, whether we should or not, for totally irrational, insane reasons. And so I'm just completely unable to be objective about Harrison Ford, and I'm still trying to figure out what that means.
Sure.
That's all fair. I'm saying. I can't be objective about Haley Steinfeld because of True Grit, because I loved her so much in True Grit that I was rooting for her to be good in this movie. And I heard the Romeo and Juliet she was just in was terrible.
Right.
So I don't want her to be a one-hit wonder.
Right. But did you hear that
because
she
should
was
have because she should. I heard the chemistry between the Romeo and Juliet was no good. So I don't know. I mean, I don't.
No, that's fair. That's fair.
But I don't know. I mean, like she should have been nominated for an Academy Award for Best Actor or Best Actress in True Grit. I think she did get nominated for Best Supporting.
Yeah.
Which I think was a joke.
Yes.
So
yes.
So anyways, I'm rooting for her unabashedly, and but I thought Asa Butterfield was great. I thought it was really, really good.
Moises Arias.
You know who the biggest name in this movie was, other than Harrison Ford and Viola Davis, and Ben Kingsley, and they totally just talk about underutilization. Abigail Breslin.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Little Miss Sunshine.
Yeah, that's underutilized because of who she is, but that's not actually of the Wiggin siblings. They gave you Valentine.
No, I believe it. I actually mean that, considering that she is probably of the children the biggest star in the movie.
That's right.
She has one of the smaller roles, but that's fine. She did a great job, and that's fine with it.
Yes,
it was almost like it almost felt like a cameo to me.
Yeah, yeah.
Like a great cameo. I like the idea of children doing cameos.
Something I think they did a really nice job of in the book. That in the book, it kind of feels like a cameo too, and what I mean by that is Valentine's presence is all over the place, because the story of Ender is his worry that he is becoming like Peter, and his using Valentine, or the concept of Valentine, to anchor himself to something that is not Peter. I think Peter got short shrift in the movie, and I think that's purely for time. It's a much more complex. He's not just a thug.
Sure.
Even if he is, shall we say, less nuanced than Ender or even Valentine, he's much smarter than he comes across in the movie.
Yeah.
Not that he comes across
Yeah.
dumb, but like
No, he just comes across as a bully.
as a bully and a brute, and
Yeah.
he really is like Valentine and Ender come across much smarter, and he is every bit as smart in the book, but Valentine's presence is so much more about her presence, about the conception of her presence than about her actual presence. She doesn't have a ton of scenes in the book. She just doesn't, you know?
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's interesting.
so-
You want to think about something that didn't need to be in the movie that they put in the movie
What's that?
was that he was a third, because the idea of him being a third in the book apparently matters so much because they make a big deal about how there aren't any of them, and so him being one makes him an outcast and able to be an outsider from the very
Right.
beginning.
Right.
But they mention it in passing in a scene, and then it's not actually pertinent in any other place. You don't see him meeting up with other thirds. You
Right.
don't see him there's no real they do enough of trying to prove that he's an outsider in a bunch of other ways
Right.
that it's not actually necessary. And I feel like they almost did it just because it was an interesting idea from the book. But
That's well said. That's well said.
but I mean, it wasn't distracting. It didn't bother me, but I thought it was, but I want to go back to the battle scenes because I do think, and especially the final battle scene, it does. I think there's something really amazing about the idea of showing children. This movie felt like it was about children
Yeah.
in a way that was not condescending and
Yeah.
took them seriously
Well
and
said.
showed. And here's another thing, right? It shows children being good at something.
Mm-hmm.
How often do you see a movie where kids are straight up good at something? Actually.
Yeah.
And I mean, you will see children good at something if a movie only has children and is fundamentally about children.
Right.
But this is actually an adult movie
Mhm.
about a grown-up world in which children are useful. I mean, that's
That's really interesting.
Totally-
The movie that comes to mind is Searching for Bobby Fischer.
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
I
No,
mean,
you're absolutely right.
you know.
But even in that, and yes, and you know that to me is a perfect film.
I
But
do
even
know
in that, the idea of that is, chess isn't actually saving anyone's life in the world. I mean,
that's true.
children are significantly necessary. You know what I mean? In Ender's Game, whereas chess is a thing. But anyways, well, it's not a chess thing. He says it's not a thing. It's chess. But anyways, I just contradicted Joe Mantegna in that movie. I think. But I thought that was really interesting, and I liked that. I don't know if this movie if I will say that I love this movie down the line.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thoroughly engrossed from beginning to end.
Mm-hmm.
Kinda didn't like the ending. Kinda still up and down about Harrison Ford's performance.
Okay.
But I thought that first of all, the effects were glorious.
Yes.
Not that this movie was about effects. It used the effects
That's
beautifully.
why. That's one of the.
It
re-
never
not- that's not
felt-
why it
it
was.
never
glorious,
felt
but
like it
that's
was
one of
either
the
a-
reasons. Yeah.
It never felt like it was about the effects,
Mhm.
and I never thought of them as effects.
Yes.
That's why I think they were great.
Say more about why you didn't like the ending.
Well, you're okay. Here's my problem.
Okay.
It's so about me and not about the movie.
But that's fine.
Haley. Okay. It's very simple. It's actually very simple. To me,
Mm-hmm.
this is a movie about a kid who is an outsider
Mm-hmm.
learning to become a leader, and not just a leader in the sense of the alpha, but the leader of a team.
Okay.
And within that, and I love the way this movie portrays this, he finds love. And it's never actually explicit that he and Haley Steinfeld's character are in love, Petra.
Mhm.
It's never explicit that Ender and Petra are in love. it's just she's a girl and he's a boy, and there's this sort of flirtiness between them. But even that, like, it's not super flirty.
Mm-hmm.
You could argue that they're not necessarily together. They're
Right.
just best friends.
Right.
I, however, am a male who thinks that to a boy and a girl that are remotely attractive at the same age, they like each other. And Andy, and I mean like. They like
do you
each other.
do you
Yeah,
do you like
Like
Nice.
each other.
Right.
Not just like each other.
like can
Um,
lead to like and like can lead
Right.
to love? Yes.
I
Yes.
was annoyed that he went where he went alone
Okay.
when he was walking towards the broken down castle, and she was like, "Let me go with you," and he's like, "No." And then I, in my mind, as they panned back, expected to see her following him anyway. I was annoyed
Interesting.
with her. I was annoyed with her for not following him,
Mhm.
and I was annoyed that the way the movie ends, the way the entire arc of this movie, to me, if it's going to end with him going off searching for places to put this new life, then he's going with his team. Like, then it's him and his team. Now, that might seem too happy and upbeat, and that's maybe they wanted to go dark and stark. But then
Yeah.
the idea then is that he's destined to be alone. And maybe that's what the book tried to portray, is that he's destined to be alone. And that's not a bad idea. It's just that the whole movie, to me,
Yeah.
leads to this character becoming part of something finally.
That's really well said. That's really well said. I didn't think about it in those terms because I brought baggage. I brought book baggage with me, and from that perspective,
Say more.
I will. It isn't about him becoming a leader. That's part of it, but that's not the entire arc. His entire arc is learning where he fits on the spectrum between Peter and Valentine.
Okay, and that is not portrayed in the movie well. If that's the case.
I think I agree with you. I think
Either not portrayed in the movie well or not really gotten into. He mentions it a couple of times, so as you said.
Right. Right.
So I think that's the other thing is they show a quote at the beginning of the movie that's from Ender,
Yeah.
which essentially tells you what's going to happen at the end, and that really bothered me. It was very clear to me as I was watching the movie
Mm-hmm.
that he was becoming compassionate for them,
Mm-hmm.
and that he wouldn't have gone to war with them had he gotten the chance to make the decision.
Right.
But there's a difference between making the decision not to go to war and making the decision not to annihilate a whole creation.
Yes, that is right.
Like, and that's tricky for me too, because we have made a distinction as humans between war
Mm-hmm.
and, as they said in the Civil War, total war, right?
Right.
Between war and genocide, between
Right.
war and annihilation.
Yep.
There's we beat you and we win.
Mhm.
There's we beat you into submission, and then there's you no longer exist because of us.
Right.
And I have no problem with the idea of portraying this adult culture that actually believes in annihilation.
Mm-hmm.
But the choice that he made was he never actually got to choose to go to war at all.
Right.
You know,
That's right.
But maybe that's interesting. But maybe that's what Gavin Hood wants, because the idea is that he naturally concludes as a tactician in a game that annihilation is the obvious answer,
Right. Right.
and he's so busy trying to prove himself worthy
Yeah.
that he gets caught up in it and isn't thinking about.
That's absolutely what happened in the book. Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. So then I don't hate that, but I don't like that they flashed a quote of his own at the beginning of the movie.
Sure.
Because then it's about, then you know from the beginning that he will end up loving the enemy.
Right.
And I'm like, that was just unnecessary. That's, again, I think that was probably something from the book that he liked. So he's like,
Yeah.
let it in the movie.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's well said. I didn't think about that. It did strike me as weird. The quote from the character that like
Right. I read the quote. I read the quote and I was like, I read the quote and I was like, that was abnormally telling. And then I was like, and it's by the main character?
right.
Well, now I'm
and
confused.
it's done like it's you know Sun Tzu, The Art of War or something.
Mahatma Gandhi. Oh wait, no.
That's right. That's right.
Character who's in the movie.
Yes. So there's one last thing that I want to talk about, and that is the Orson Scott card, if you will.
Let's talk about that.
because it's important, and I think we are uniquely qualified to talk about it briefly, because I don't want to belabor the point. But Project Melway, I think, lends some interesting insight into this. Folks, for those who are just joining us, thank you for finally getting your lives together. But also, Phil and I just completed, for now, because he is not dead and he will continue to make movies, Phil and I just completed what we call Project Melway, brought to you by the Gibsonian Institute. We watched all of Mel Gibson's movies in chronological order.
Oh my gosh, remember when we did that? I do.
I do. I feel like if I think about it, I can't think of anything else.
I understand.
So, and the reason we did it was A, because he's been in a lot of fun movies, but also because from a sociological standpoint, he was not just a movie star. He, in many ways, was the movie star. And
right.
Both in terms of prominence and in terms of sort of like how archetypal he was. He was like the way you become a movie star in Hollywood, right?
There's it's just yes.
Right.
Yes, what you're saying.
And yet it all fell apart. And so we sort of explored that. Orson Scott Card has written in Ender's Game one of the 5 best science fiction books I have ever read.
All right.
It is extraordinarily thoughtful. It is extraordinarily compassionate and considered, and just it's remarkable. It's remarkable. And Orson Scott Card is a raging homophobe, and has gotten, I don't know if he's gotten more so as the time has as the years have gone on, or if he's just sort of feeling his oats and can say what he's always been thinking.
Can I make a comment about that?
Please.
Okay. Orson Scott Card is a religious Mormon, a deeply religious Mormon, and the Mormon faith is officially, although there are some people on the margins, of course, as there are in every religion, officially 100% against homosexuality. Orson Scott Card is speaking out about something that he believes based on his religious convictions. So there's no reason to think he ever thought anything but this. Now, that's not saying that Mormonism is the only religion that does that. We all know that ain't the case. Okay, right. Speaking as a member of a religion that has done just so much damage to gay people that I can't even think straight about it. Think straight. That was an accident, but still. But I mean, when people talk, I get a little frustrated, to be honest, when people in our culture today who criticize him talk about it like he's somehow like it's purely cultural, like, oh, he's just a homophobe or it's a political decision. I mean, for a lot of people, if you have been raised being taught something religiously and you have not had experiences to teach you otherwise, you go by what you've been taught. I stopped thinking that gays were perverts, other than the gay people that I know that are total pervs, but that's just because I know straight people that are pervs too, right?
Right. Being gay also doesn't prevent you from being a pervert.
Right. That's why people are like, I know gay people. Gay people are great. I'm like, not all of them. They're people. Some of them are terrible. People are terrible. So no, but like the idea that I stopped thinking that homosexuality was a perversion, like when I realized that I knew gay people that weren't pervs.
Right. And
that in fact so what I'm saying is, but I only knew that because of that. And so if your religious conviction outweighs your experience, this is where we are right now in our culture. And I guess I'm actually trying to say to my liberal friends, like, I get that we're all on this boat now where we think gays are cool, and trust me, I'm on that boat. I am on the gay boat. Okay, I'm a rear admiral on that boat. But I don't automatically look at people who aren't there with us yet, religious people I should say, religious people who aren't there with us yet, and go, homophobe. I'm kind of like, I get it. Like, I mean, and I'm not saying you should feel the same way. I mean, you and I may just come from different places about this, but like, I'm like, I see people and I'm like, I get it. Like, I disagree with you fundamentally, right? But I was raised in something that I was taught a certain way. And I guess what I'm saying is, he probably has become more outspoken about this, but he's probably always felt this way. Sure. And I think we think gay people were born this way. But many of us were taught, including myself, that this was a decision you make, and you're choosing to live a lifestyle. And it makes perfectly sense as a religious person. It makes perfect sense as a religious person to say this lifestyle goes against my religious belief. When you start to take on the idea that it's your ontology, that it's your very being, that it's part of your actual identity rather than just a behavior, it becomes a lot easier to just be like, what is my problem here? And be compassionate.
Right. That makes
Which is what
sense,
I think he
Phil.
writes about. He writes in his book about compassion for the other.
Right. Phil, that makes total sense. It makes total sense. And that is, and I would expect nothing else from you, but that is an extremely compassionate way of looking at it. And I don't care.
Sure.
I don't care. And I don't care on a level that, like, I don't care on a level that I don't even get to the question, is he a homophobe? I freely admit that I called him a homophobe as shorthand. You know?
Right.
Like, is he a homophobe? Is it his upbringing? Does it matter? Those are all excellent questions. Those are all excellent questions that I don't even engage with. I don't even engage with.
Well, no, his upbringing is clearly homophobic. That's what we would say.
That's
like,
fine. Right.
So no, I'm not differentiating. I'm just saying I'm looking at the guy being like, people are like, all of a sudden, and I'm like, I don't think it's all of a sudden. I'm guessing.
That's fair.
This is how he was raised, and in the face of a culture that has grown in our time, in the last 20 years.
Yep.
Radically more sensitive to this issue.
Yes.
Radically more compassionate. He's probably stayed the same, but he's reacting now.
Right. By saying the same, he has moved away from us.
Looking around at the world going, whoa. How are we all of a sudden okay with this very bad thing?
That's fine. That's fine. And again,
I still think he's wrong, right?
Of course I do. Of course I know that. But again, and I actually, this is not the point. This is only the setup to the point. So I want to say this and move on. Which is not to say I need the last word. You're more than welcome to respond.
No, go ahead.
But yeah, I still don't care. And I know that like you have just spent so much time being compassionate and being thoughtful about it. But I can't get past the fact that I know what this does to kids who feel a certain way, and I know what this does to adults that feel a certain way, that feel they are a certain way. I can't get past the fact that I grew up with a guy who has since come out and was clearly gay in high school and didn't come out to me. And I'm not like, and I can't help feeling, whatever part of that, and maybe it was all him. Maybe I was the most compassionate person in the world and he just couldn't because he wasn't ready. But maybe there was something in me. That was not welcoming. And I can't handle that. I can't handle that was true about me. So I need to be very careful right now because my emotions are on a very short leash, and I am afraid that I will say something that will make this podcast not family friendly. But I do not care at all what makes him feel the way he feels and what makes him speak the way he speaks. When I call him a homophobe, and I know you're not differentiating, does it make me? Do I understand that it could be his upbringing? Of course I understand that. Don't care. But it raises an interesting question. And it is the same question raised by Project Melway, which is, and it's interesting that you were so considered and thoughtful in everything you just said, because I know we come down, if not on completely different sides, at least in different places on this question. Right. Where do you separate? And how do you separate? And should you separate the art from the artist?
Sure. Meaning, if a Nazi makes a good movie, do you go see the movie?
Right. That's right. And I fear that
That's the easiest. So we always go to Nazis. It's easier.
Well, it works for Indiana Jones.
For the record, I think Stalin was a worse person, but nobody will be with me on that one for some reason, so that's fine.
I mean, at the very least, Nazis did tend to kill people who were not their own people.
True.
Yeah,
I mean, Stalin killed millions more people. millions more people.
Right. And they were largely his own people.
Yes,
Almost
whatever that
entirely.
means, but you're right. Right.
Yeah,
Right.
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 You know, there's something paternalistic about the state, and you should take care of your own people, or at the very least, not exterminate them. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a wide gulf there, but at the very least,
Right.
do not exterminate your own people.
Right.
So here's the deal. I feel like I have not represented what I actually feel on this topic. I have said you have to separate the art from the artist. You have to separate the art from the artist. Like, you can't care. And I do believe that. But I also believe this. You feel what you feel. So if you know something, if you believe in your heart that Mel Gibson is an anti-Semite, or if you believe in your heart that Orson Scott Card is homophobic and hates gay people, or if you believe that, and I'm not equating these and I'm not equating these, I'm just saying it's another thing that you could use. If you believe that Christian Bale is a jerk who berates the people on set who are not actors, who are the crew, if you believe those things and it affects your enjoyment of their work, of their art, of their craft, of their product,
Right.
that's totally valid. That is
Yeah.
totally valid.
Yeah.
I personally believe that ends up being problematic, if taken to its logical conclusion. And I also and the only other caveat I would have is to say this: if you experience art and you have whatever reaction you have to it, and then you find out something about the artist, it doesn't invalidate the feeling you had. And we talk about it in terms of like, oh well, how can you like Mel Gibson movies when you know what he's like? But it works the other way too. Like how can you hate a movie if you meet a director and he turns out awesome, or she's
That's
amazing?
a very good point.
You know what I mean?
That's a very good point. But I do think to some degree that you are actually a little bit of an ideologue on this issue, because I feel like the reality is it is on a spectrum. That it is a case by case basis, and that you may say it has no bearing, but I feel like it might have a bearing in the sense of like you might, if you met Orson Scott Card, and then you might be like, I'm not seeing that dude's movie. Like you might, if you had a personal feeling about him or Harrison Ford, maybe not Orson Scott Card, because actually, in my opinion, Orson Scott Card is removed enough from this movie.
I agree with that.
That it's not. I mean, even though he's not got a producer credit, it's like.
Agreed.
But maybe my ambiguous feelings. By the way, the other day I was trying to say ambiguous, and I kept saying ambiguous, and then I kept saying it, and I couldn't remember how to say it right. Like I consciously was like, I'm saying it wrong, ambiguous, and I got stuck. And I was like a record. I was like, how do I get out of the ambiguous rut? And then it's ambiguous.
It is.
Ambiguous.
That is fantastic.
That I have these weird ambiguous feelings about one of my favorite actors of all time, Harrison Ford, that I'm trying to deal with, and I totally took them into this movie. So my point is like, that's, to me, it's like more. If a Jewish person just can't stand to look at Mel Gibson, they can't. Like.
And I promise that is what I'm. That's why I wanted to clarify, because that's totally valid. And I'm not saying I'm not. I am.
But I'm convinced there is a line for you.
Of course there is.
But I don't know what your line is.
I'm not sure I know what that line is either. I'm trying to think. There is someone that I'm just like, no, I'm not seeing that. Oh,
I think what's really interesting, by the way, about this whole thing. Two things. One is you should be more compassionate against people who aren't compassionate. That's what I want to say about that. The second thing I want to say is
you're right.
I feel like Orson Scott, well, because I think it goes down to this thing. I think you're one of these people who's really, really tolerant, except towards people you think are intolerant. And it's like, well, people are people, so how can it be that you and I can, never mind, I'm not going to sing that song to you. I'm kidding. No, but here's what I want to say to Orson Scott Card.
I want you to be kidding, and then I want you to sing the song to me, but go ahead.
People are people, so why should it be that you and I should get along so awfully?
Wow.
What a great song.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing.
When I was watching this movie and its underlying theme of compassion and desire to understand the other, all I could think was, man, Orson Scott Card should really see this. Like this is a really good story about compassion for something you don't understand. Orson Scott Card should see this because he doesn't understand gay people, and that's the weirdest irony of this entire event.
It's amazing.
The most entire. I mean, I can't think of something more ironic,
right,
than that. I can't. Certainly more ironic than anything Alanis Morissette ever sang about.
Nice. That's A, not hard, but B, totally true.
Yes.
You're absolutely right about me being intolerant about intolerance.
Sure.
And all I can say is, like, if you're old enough to be intolerant and have it mean something, you're old enough to weather the storm of my disapproval.
I hear you. I don't. It's not that I disagree with you. I'm not saying that they can't weather it. I actually think that, like, the thing that ends intolerance is us stopping being intolerant. Like, I think to some degree we have to bear things, and I think our generation, and whether other people like it or not, I think our generation has to bear a certain level of homophobia, and I think that we have to bear it. And people don't want to hear this, and it's easy for me to say because I'm straight and blah 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 blah. It doesn't matter how homophobia has affected me personally, because it has. Mm-hmm. We have to bear this gracefully. And that means that we have to put up with things we shouldn't have to put up with.
Yes.
So that the next generation is able to live in some level of harmony. And I mean, and to me, it's a lot of Martin Luther King Jr. type of stuff. It's like, should he have the right to be angry and want to just kill him some white people? Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. The decision to treat them more humanely than they treat him is what makes him who he is.
Again, you are being extraordinarily thoughtful, and my only response to that, because I 100% agree with you, are you ready for me to champion being closed-minded? Because you will never hear this again.
Bring it.
And only to a certain extent. Let us be. A teacher of mine in high school said, "Let us be open-minded, but let us not be so open-minded that our brains fall out."
Right. Sure.
And that's not, and that's, I wish that were a touch less glib, because you make excellent points.
Well, but for the record, I'm not actually suggesting we be open-minded. Like, for the record, I'm not actually saying that I should be open to Orson Scott Card's point of view.
I think his point of view is stupid. Yes.
Yeah, his point of view is stupid and wrong and frankly evil. And people who seek to oppress and belittle and criminalize and demonize gay people, they're wrong to a degree that is shameful.
Yeah.
But we have to understand the context of the world we're living in right now, and the fact that by thinking that we are out there, we are the ones who are mm-hmm. breaking new ground, and so we have to be aware, and that's all I'm saying. But I actually don't think we should be open-minded. Like, to be completely fair.
Fair. Then my too glib, and then I can stop talking about this. Then my too glib response to that is, you don't dress for the job you have. You dress for the job you want. And so while I agree that it's lovely to bear things, and I really do believe that it's lovely to bear things gracefully, I also believe that without a certain amount of pushing, the world doesn't move. And so if we just bear things gracefully so that the next generation can live in a better world, they're not going to live in a better world because we haven't moved it towards that direction.
I think again, I'm going to go back because it's easy. It's easier for me to go to Martin Luther King Jr., partially because he's American and recent, and secondly because it's nicer for people to hear than just to go straight to Jesus. But it's the same idea, which is that bearing it gracefully it's the difference between pacifism and nonviolence. Is right. That it wasn't that he was passive. It's that he chose to use pushing and force without violence. So I'm with you. I actually am with you. I think we don't want to bear things gracefully to the point of being little sheep led off to the slaughter, so to speak, or lemmings.
Right.
Unless it calls for that, because he was led to the slaughter, and Martin Luther King was led to the slaughter, and I think he accepted that part of himself. I think he was a man who knew he was going to die and accepted that about himself, and chose not to have bodyguards, and chose not to wear bulletproof vests. It's a decision he made. But I think we have to differentiate in our minds between that pushing. I don't know. Anyways, between the pushing and being wishy-washy. But I understand what you're saying, and I think we've talked about this a lot. Probably we're way off the topic of Ender's Game. But I think, Ender's Game, I hope, is a movie that teaches kids not only about compassion, but about questioning authority. And I think it deals with trying to figure out where compassion begins and where pushing and fighting are. And where does all of this fit into the picture?
There is a time for all things, and Ender's Game, both the book and the movie, makes that point. Actually, I think pretty well. And we did get off topic, but the fact is that our discussion has been prompted by the thoughts that were even Orson Scott Card and his issues. If they were just his issues, like, we didn't spend a lot of time in Project Melway talking about, like, the time that he yelled at his girlfriend, right? Because it wasn't germane.
Right.
And yet here,
it's so germane.
It's so germane. So I mean,
it's
folks,
so relevant to the top.
So folks, I mean, obviously we've talked a lot about spoilers, but I think it's possible that maybe some of you haven't seen the movie, you've just read the book. The movie is worth seeing because, just like the book, you end up in discussions like this, and it's related even if it's not related. So So yeah, good talk, man. Good talk.
Yes, thank you, and you're welcome, Second Breakfast, for that.
You're welcome. There you go. Shall we move on to the mailbag?
Can we please? I love the mailbag.
Yeah, let's do it.
Mailbag time.
Love mailbag, Andy Roth. Love mailbag.
I know. He loves it so much he's not speaking in complete sentences. It's amazing.
Mailbag, love mail.
I love mailbag. Brick, are you just looking at things in my office and saying that you love them?
Yes.
I love
yes. Love mailbag. Mailbag. Mailbag.
First question from Daniel, good friend of the podcast. Daniel. Hello, Daniel. Daniel asks, what's the last movie ending that completely blew you away?
Okay.
I like this question a lot. I'm a fan.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it's a question we could just do every once in a while because it's just it's applicable like once every couple of months.
That's right.
I'll bonus you and give you the last two movie endings that completely blew me away.
I'm so excited.
I mean, well, first of all, I want to say Gravity, except really, it was the whole thing.
Right.
The ending, it ended, and I was like, yep.
If we are defining ending as the end of the time when I was sitting in the theater and they were showing me previews, yes.
So yeah, what's the how do you understand to be blown away by the end of a movie? Fair question, right?
Yes, it is. I took it to mean I took it in sort of the broadest sense. Anything that just made me go, wow. It doesn't have to be a surprise ending. It doesn't have to be anything like that. And I actually have my last two movies as well. And they blew me away for completely different reasons. Not completely different reasons, but yeah.
Now neither of mine were seen in the theater. Both of them were at home.
Excellent.
But both of them are fairly new. One is Looper.
Nice. Okay.
And it didn't blow me away like, ah!
Right.
It blew me away in the sense of it was a movie that I honestly didn't know where it was going until it got there, and when it got there, it made perfect sense and had built to that the entire time.
Yes.
And like it worked. It managed to be unexpected and perfectly deserved. Mm-hmm. And it made me, and I realized it was going to happen about 5 seconds before it happened.
That's right.
Not long enough for me to be like, ha ha, but long enough that I was like, oh.
Yeah. Yep.
And then the one before that actually was watching Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene. The end of that movie is one of the most unsettling endings of a movie I have ever seen.
Yes. For a quiet ending for a quiet ending and one that doesn't sort of rise above, and this is not a complaint, rise above unsettling.
Yep.
For a movie for which the ending is that is true about the ending, it totally wrecked me. Just because it's so unsettling.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know we were already just talking about Ender's Game earlier, but I got to say, like, it didn't blow me away, but the moment where the moment where Ender realizes, like, I realized I had the inkling earlier, but it was only an inkling. It definitely, like, I was like gut punched at that point in the movie. It wasn't the ending of the movie, but it was near the end, and I definitely got gut punched by that moment of realization.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay, so tell me yours.
Both of mine, sort of refreshingly for me, not to cast aspersions on your two movies because I love both of your answers. Both of mine were actually in the theater.
Aspersion.
I don't know.
Aspersion.
The first, I'll go in chronological order. The World's End. The World's End
Nice.
blew me away for two reasons. At least the first time I saw it. One, it was coming at the end of the Three Flavors Cornetto trilogy, so it was sort of the culmination of something that I have loved, like I have loved few other things for a decade. Right.
Sure.
And so that there was a lot there, and then also, and I have seen it since then in the theater, and it has continued to blow me away in this way ever since. Just the implications of everything, and the implications that, like, and I don't want to get too much into spoilers, but you know, it's not much of a spoiler to say that he saves humanity in a certain way, but he saves humanity through being totally self-involved and selfish, and just the implications of that, and the gumption and cojones necessary to end the movie that way. I was like, Edgar Wright, good on you.
All right.
And the other movie, and if this makes any sense at all, and I think it will to you, it blew me away in sort of a low-key way.
Okay.
Short Term 12.
Yeah, I almost put that on there, man. I almost put that on there.
I get it.
The end of that movie, again, that was another one like Gravity where, no, actually the whole movie blew me away.
Right.
The way that movie ended was so perfect that it felt good.
Yes. Here's how I'm defining, by the way, just for you and for the one person out there experiencing this podcast who has also seen it, whoever you may be, I love you. And the rest of you, get your lives together. I drove 3.5 hours to see this movie. I expect the same from you.
True.
I'm defining the ending this way. The story that he tells
Oh!
through the end. Right? Right?
You know, and I would like, I mean, honestly, yes. Secondly, the way back, the moment it ended, I looked at my friend I was with and said, if it just started again immediately and I didn't have to leave, I would stay right here.
Yeah.
Like the climactic scene of that as well, just.
Yep.
And so I guess Blow Me Away makes me think of like movies where you're like, oh my gosh! But like that wasn't that.
Right. The reveal in Empire Strikes Back. No. Right? But it's not.
Twist.
Yes, a twist of some kind. Right. And that was not that. I also liked the shall we say, the cinematography, the cinematographic conceit at the end of Short Term 12, how they show you the ending, was like, Andy, we're going to just give you some time to sit and cry. You just take a minute. You just take a minute. Take a minute. Sob away, my friend.
I piggyback on that answer. In the movie theaters, that was definitely the last movie that blew me away, and the last scene.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Good answers. Good answers all around. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, look, I know we were going to do 2 questions today, but this is already an extraordinarily long podcast with an emphasis on extraordinary, frankly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good work, Andy and Phil, but I think this question that's coming up is one that I like so much. I don't want to I don't want to try to fit it into a 5-minute question. I think it deserves more.
Yeah, I'm sure you're right, and I'm sure I like the question too. We wouldn't be doing it otherwise, but I can't remember. I can't remember a time when I wasn't doing this podcast.
Exactly, that's the problem.
And I don't mean Second Breakfast. I mean this episode.
No, I know. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So yeah. We should totally call it. But we got some awesome places. Like
I thought so too. I was gonna say, look, this is just another week in the cultural touchstone that is Second Breakfast Podcast.
That's right. We have tapped into the zeitgeist here, folks, and
I think we have.
I'm not
On
even
a
sure what that
subconscious
means.
level.
I don't even know what that means.
It means buzzword. It means that we've merged the cloud and facilitated the growing of the. I'm just using as many buzzwords as I
I
possibly
like
can
it.
use.
I like your use of the word cloud because, man.
You were the one who told me. Yeah, you were the one who told me you went to something and like everyone was like talking about the cloud, and you were like, "You don't know what it is, do you?"
Right, and people are like,
We're all just.
and people are like, do I not know what the cloud is? I clouded the cloud this morning on the cloud.
People feel when they talk like that, like anytime someone uses the word synergy
You're done.
or synergize,
Yep.
I feel like they're like Brick in Anchorman, where they're just like,
I love lamp.
I love lamp, right?
Yes, that's right.
Desk,
That's
loud
right.
noises. Like I think that's what happened.
Folks,
We've managed to actually stretch out saying goodbye. Even
that's right.
Andy?
That's right.
Andy, domo arigato for the good work you did today. And I'll see you next week.
We will see, and Second Breakfast Nation, we will see you next week. We are Second Breakfast, and for the podcast, I'm Andy Roth, and that is Phil Duvall. Bye, everybody.
Bye now.
The most important meal of the day, second breakfast.